when I used to work at the call center. So I worked for Vonage for a little bit. Trust me, I did not work there alone because it was a call center. So I think that's the only job I ever quit without a backup plan either. I just cold turkey. Welcome to Debt Free in IT. I'm your host, Mike. This podcast is for anyone who's looking to get into the IT industry, whether it's for a career change or you're just interested. I think you come to the right place. In today's episode, we're taking a look at the entry-level skills that's needed to get into the IT industry in 2025. So when it comes to the entry-level skills, they roughly fall into about 4 categories. The first category is the technical aspect. The second category is problem solving. The third category, I think, is communication and customer service. The fourth category is having a little bit of security awareness. Now, with these categories, I'm not saying that you need to be the best in all of the above, but I do think you need to come to the table with some of them or easily be trained and willing to learn them. So starting with the first category, and that's the technical aspect. So when I think about the technical aspect from a entry-level perspective, some of the things that come to mind is just some basic networking. So understanding some basic networking, things like IP addressing, DNS, DHCP, understand what those protocols do, the functionality of those protocols, because a lot of times just having that basic understanding of it will help you to do some troubleshooting. So I remember when I was in help desk, when I was in help desk, I wasn't doing really anything networking. I wasn't logging into no routers, logging into no switches. But if I went out to a PC and I saw that that PC was getting a 169 IP address, I clearly knew that, okay, this PC isn't grabbing an address from DHCP, because I understood how DHCP works. I understood how all that works. So it made it better for me when going and troubleshooting issues from a help desk perspective or from a desktop perspective, because like I said, especially desktop, you're going to be the boots on the ground. So, and desktop is a role that someone could get as their first IT role also. So coming in from that perspective, just having a little bit of network training, knowing some basic networking, it helps you out along the job. So from an entry level perspective, I would say that you need to at least know some networking basics. And then adding on to the networking basics, I would say you need to be familiar with some command line tools like ping, ipconfig. Ping, you can test connectivity with other devices, which comes in handy no matter if you're in networking, server, desktop, help desk operations. Ping is something that you use on the daily. So having a good understanding, knowing how to use ping. Know how to use ipconfig, because that way you can quickly see your network settings on a PC from the command line. And then just being familiar with different operating systems. So most of us, I would say, if taking a guess, about 60% of us probably grew up on a Windows system. So we're probably pretty familiar with how Windows systems operate. So knowing your way around the Windows OS, being familiar with a little MacOS now, because some places we'll have Macs, but most of the time I've yet to see a whole organization where even their end users are using Macs. So, but having some familiarity, being a little bit familiar with it will help out, because you may have a case here and there where someone or some department, let's say you got a graphic design department, 9 times out of 10, they might be using Macs. So having being a little bit familiar with it will help you out. Then also being familiar with Linux. So I would say that Linux will probably help you out more if you're even going into that server perspective. So having some knowledge of Linux, how their operating systems work. But for the main time, for the entry level role, I would say knowing some Windows OS, because 9 times out of 10, the enterprise you're working at is probably going to be mainly Windows, if I had to take an educated guess. So just knowing about Windows, knowing how to troubleshoot some OS related issues, knowing about your event viewer, knowing about different system utilities that you can use to kind of help you to troubleshoot the different OS issues. So being familiar just with that Windows OS. And then once you get familiar with that Windows OS, I would say, if possible, throw in a little hardware, being able to install RAM, install the operating system, things like that, installing, updating software, different applications. Most companies may have a proprietary application that their development team has made. So being able to just know how to troubleshoot the different applications. A lot of times, if they do have that proprietary application, a lot of times you'll have a lot of training on that application in general. So, but just knowing your way all around a PC, there a little bit from the hardware perspective, because if you do happen to land a desktop role, then you're definitely going to be adding RAM to PCs. That's probably one of the things that's never going to go away. So adding RAM, and then just being able to take apart a PC, which in most cases, in my desktop role, I didn't really have to do that a lot. Most of the time it ended up where if I had a bad PC, I could either change the hard drive, may have to add some RAM, re-image it. But then there was some times where you may be low on PCs where you don't have a brand new one you can just grab, where, you have to kind of get into your hardware bag then and start piecing together a PC to make it work in order to return it to the end user. So moving on to the second category, which is problem solving. So with problem solving, this is where you're going to end up, you need to have some kind of critical thinking skills, being able to diagnose and resolve common technical issues. A lot of times if you're at an organization, a lot of them have what we like to call a knowledge base, where for every issue, they may have a documentation or a document that has some of the common issues you get with this application. So if you're having an issue with a certain application, you get a call on it or you get a ticket on it, first thing to do, check this knowledge base, see if it has a fix on it. Because a lot of times, if depending on the organization, but most of them, I would expect for them to have this. I know when I used to work at the call center, so I worked for Vonage for a little bit. Trust me, I did not work there alone because it was a call center. So I think that's the only job I ever quit without a backup plan either. I just cold turkey quit it. But when I worked at Vonage, you have different scripts that you have to go by. So if someone calls, you have that script that you read out and things like that. And depending on what their issue is, we had a knowledge base for their issue. So let's say someone call and say that, okay, I'm not getting a connection. I could look at the knowledge base, look at common issues, connection issues. I click on that on the knowledge base. It brings up the different little prompts that I can go through to help resolve that issue. So, but also there will be a point in time where you're going to get a lot of issues that may not be in that knowledge base. So this is where you need to have at least some kind of critical thinking and problem solving skills, being able to work through the problem. I know in networking, a lot of us, we like to work through the different problems using the OSI model. So if you know the OSI model, please do not throw sausage pizza away. For all my OGs, I'm pretty sure you know what that means. So please do not throw sausage pizza away. A lot of us go by that OSI model where we start at layer 1, that physical layer, and do our due diligence there. If that layer 1 is functioning, we move up to layer 2, that data link layer. This is where I may be on the switch, looking at the MAC addresses, making sure everything's showing up on the switch, then move on to layer 3. So in your critical thinking process, and this is going to grow as you get experience, but I would say at least come to the table with a little bit of knowledge on some basic troubleshooting steps. I know you have a lot of things you can search Google for troubleshooting PCs or troubleshooting applications, and have a little walkthrough of the different steps to take. So there's a lot of things that you can research to try to get better at it. But I would say that this is something that you're going to need, because most places, they will have that knowledge base, but then you're going to come to a point in time where you get an issue that's not in that knowledge base, and you need to know how to go through, thoroughly troubleshoot it, document your troubleshooting steps, because that way, if it ends up being something you need to escalate, then whoever you escalating it to, they see the steps that you took. And that could serve two purposes. So first purpose, it could help that person, whoever you escalate the ticket to not retrace your steps and go ahead and do something else to solve that issue. Another thing that it can do that most people don't think about is that you're sending tickets to the network team. You're sending tickets to the server team. So one thing that's going to stand out, if all your tickets are very well documented, people will notice that. So you sending this ticket to networking, and after a while they're going to say, oh, Mike's tickets are real good. He always have all the information. He always done went through a lot of troubleshooting steps. So that way, when an opening comes up and old Mike apply, then someone's going to say, oh, his tickets are usually very thorough and well documented. And that might be something to give me a little bit of leverage in order to get me an interview. Then once I win over the interview, now I done went from this entry-level role up to networking. So use it as a stepping stone. So you always want to have good tickets, because trust me, if you do bad tickets, words travel fast. So bad tickets, I say the words travel real fast. So don't try to just rush and do a ticket. Make sure you get all the information. And also it's good that if you put the troubleshooting steps that you done took, because for someone at that higher level, when they get that ticket, it's good to see that someone at the help desk or someone in operations went through and did the due diligence to make sure that this wasn't an issue that they could resolve before escalating it up. Quick pause. I hope you're enjoying this episode. I'd like to tell you about my weekly newsletter, The Log Files. So this is a weekly newsletter to help you start your IT career with practical advice and tips powered by yours truly. So we launched it at the beginning of the year. It's packed with actionable advice, resources, and insights to help kickstart your IT journey. I'll put a link in the description as well as pinned in the comments, so don't miss out. So the third category that I think someone at an entry-level standpoint should have skills with is communication and customer service. So this boils down to, overall, if I had to put it in layman's terms, I would say think about when your grandparents raised you. You know how your grandparents used to always have you to say yes ma'am, no ma'am, things like that, just being polite to other people. You kind of want to have that kind of level of customer service. You were not saying that you got to kiss up to people, but you don't want to be no one rude or something like that. You don't want to be the person that people hate to call. So having a good customer service, and a lot of times you can get this customer service experience just from working in the public. So if you worked at a retail place, a lot of times you probably got good customer service. If you worked anywhere that does retail, maybe you did some call center work. A lot of times that's straight customer service also. So customer service and communication. So with communication, you're going to get calls if this is your first role. If your first role is a help desk role, or even if your first role may be desktop, you still may interact with different users. So this means that you need to be able to listen to users and understand their technical concerns. So listening to users and understanding their problem, because a lot of times folks may call you, but they have a problem, but they're not sure how to describe that problem. So sometimes you can remote into their device and see what that problem is, but sometimes you may not have that luxury of remoting into someone's device. So you need to know how to listen to them to kind of put you around the right area of what may be their issue. And then from listening to them, you need to turn around and know the right questions to ask. So with support, there's some questions that you got to know. You got to know where they're calling from. You got to know where they're located. You got to know what kind of device they're on. And you got to know what their issue is. So you need to ask the right questions to pull all of this from the user, because another thing to think about is a lot of times you may be helping non-technical folks. So everyone that's calling you is not going to be an IT guy, an IT person. So you need to be able to help this person that's not technical to resolve their issues. So then also with that person that's not technical, you need to be able to explain some of the issues to them in simple terms. Or if there's something you need to change, instead of telling them the whole jargon, yeah, I need to go in, change your IP address, I need to go in and do this to DNS, I need to go in and statically assign this. You don't need to break it down like that. You need to just tell them something simple, the simple layman's terms. Think about if you're trying to describe whatever you're fixing to your little cousin or to your little niece, to your little son, to your nephew or whoever, someone younger. You want to put it in those layman terms, but having communication skills and good customer service skills, I think will help you out as an entry-level skill to get into the IT industry. So the last category is security awareness. I'm not saying that with security awareness, you need to come into the game already being a security professional. Not saying you already need that security plus, but you do need to be able to recognize some common security threats. So you need to be able to understand or recognize phishing emails. So be able to tell users that, oh, that's a phishing email, don't click on it. Being able to educate them. You need to be able to tell when someone has malware on their computer, oh, you have a virus on this PC, let me enter a ticket or let me remove this virus. Then also password management, handling sensitive information. So you need to be able to understand password requirements, things like that. You need to have that basic security sense, understand some basic endpoint protection tools like antivirus, things like that. So you need to have this basic security awareness. One way I like to look at it as if just almost like knowing how to protect yourself in the cyber world. So you know that, a lot of it to me seems like common knowledge, but as you get into this game and start learning more about security, if you're going that route, then you'll get more advanced with it. But coming in from an entry-level standpoint, I do believe you need to understand the basics. You need to understand that if somebody emails you at 5 o'clock saying you won $1 million to click on this link, you need to have enough security awareness to know that, oh, I didn't win this money. I'm not going to click on this link. I'm going to report it as spam or report it as a phishing email. So you need to have just that security knowledge to get you in the door, and then start growing upon that. So as you start growing, as you start getting your experience up, that security knowledge is going to come up automatically, because most places now security is a big deal. So you're going to start getting educated on different type of security threats. You're going to get educated on a lot of those things, and then you're just going to start to progress through your career. And as you progress, that security aspect is going to go up, whether you're in cybersecurity or not, because that security aspect goes around for everything in IT, even in the networking team, desktop team, things like that. You're going to have systems where you need to protect those passwords. So all of that goes into play, but security awareness is the last skill that I think, or the last category of skills that someone on the entry level needs for 2025. So when it all boils down to it, I think being proficient in those 4 categories, I think will help you out to land your first IT role in 2025. So like I said earlier, I'm not saying that you need to be well versed in each category or each thing I mentioned, but I'm saying you do need to have some sort of understanding of what those things mean or what those things are. So you need to be able to have some kind of understanding, have that basic knowledge. That way, once you get in, because a lot of positions, you regardless of if you already know it or not, sometimes most places you will get trained. A lot of times even at higher level positions, if someone new comes in, you still got to train them on how you do things, how this organization does things, this organization's procedures. So a lot of times you still end up getting trained, but it's best to come in the door with a little bit of curve, a little bit of jump on the curve there, having a little bit of knowledge, knowing being comparable in each one of those categories, rather than starting at ground zero, having to get up to par with just knowing what everything is and then trying to build on it from there. So that brings me to the end of this episode. Hopefully you found some value in this episode. If you're watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe. If you're on Instagram, TikTok, or Facebook, you can follow me at DebtFreeInIT. If you have any questions, you can email me at debtfreeinit@gmail.com, or you can visit my website, debtfreeinitwithmike.com. Other than that, I'll see you next week. Peace.